Hello everyone, welcome back to ZeroSpace Security. This is a part two of Speakeasy audiobook, and now we are moving into the something powerful part two, which is $1 trillion tools. So in that, and previously we have talked about three A's of communication being articulate, assertive, and audacious. But here is the truth, knowing what to do is not enough. Basically, we need to understand how communication actually works. And that's exactly what this part is about. In this section, we are going to break down what it call the $1 trillion tools of the communication. These are the three core elements that control how people perceive your every time you speak, your thoughts, your words, and your tonality. If you learn to control these three, you don't just speak better. You influence, you connect, and you stand out. So do not just listen casually. Pay attention because this is where everything start to change. So let's begin. Gazomes. When I was 15-year-old, my dad enrolled my brothers and me into driving school. The school was broken down into two sections, theory and application. The class were 6 hours long for every Saturday of the summer. For the first 3 hours, we would learn the theory of how a car works, rules to remember when it comes to driving, and the history of the invention. For the next 3 hours, we would finally get on the road and drive. Younger me did not get the point of the first half of the class. Why am I learning all this boring theory anyways? I just want to drive. Older me gets it. In order to make the application a systematic process, it is best to learn some of the theory. No need to get super detailed, just enough theory to give some aha moment. As the famous saying goes, theory without application is a philosophy. Application without theory is ignorance. My worldview is that we get a bit of theory to get started, do a bunch of application, and then fill in the gaps in the understanding with more theory. So if you wanted to learn how to code in the language of Python, then you would briefly read some sections of your Python textbook, then you would jump into the exercises where you have to do some coding. Firsthand, you are seeing if your codes, first of all, you will look if your code is runs or not. If it runs, great. If it doesn't, then you will have to troubleshoot it. During the troubleshooting portion, that's when you revisit the textbook to fill in the gap. Much better strategy than reading this textbook nonstop. Being tested for what is in the textbook and never having an opportunity to code at all. I'm sure throughout your life you have done a lot of communicating from texting to having conversation to speaking to an audience, etc. Now, we want to put a lot of those experience into clean boxes by learning some of the tools that you possess. These tools are a gift basically. In this section, you will learn about thoughts, words, tone, body language, and the purpose of all these tools. When these tools are all over the place, you still value from others. When these tools are beautifully aligned, you become the $1 trillion communicator. So, starting with thoughts, words are simply a solidified version of your thoughts. Yet, there is a tendency to separate the two. Separating words from thoughts is like saying that ice is made from a different thing than water. That's silly. Same substance, different form. Thoughts are the true essence of a great communication. Yet, this tool typically goes unnoticed. Thoughts are invisible. A few of the great things in the world are invisible. Thoughts, the voice, and the breath. From the electromagnetic spectrum, only a small silver is a perceivable to the human eyes. That's known as a visible light. The rest goes unnoticed. The mistake is in the thinking that what is invisible is unimportant. That's why surface level communicators go straight to words, tonality, and body language while missing the most important component, that is thoughts. What are you thinking? Do you have a monkey mind? A mind that jumping from one thought to another? A still mind is a divine mind, and a divine mind is always on. Let's understand some of the practical benefits of viewing thoughts as a tool. For one, when we identify thoughts as a tool, we become the owner of the tool rather than identifying with it. I'm sure you have a smartphone that you use good amount. However, despite you using it a lot, you don't view yourself as the phone. How scary would that be? When the phone is low battery, you think you are about to die. When the phone is charged, you think you are full of life. Constantly identifying with the state of the phone, the mere idea sounds ridiculous. The phone is tool and we are the owner of the tool. Similarly, thoughts are a tool that allow us to exercise intellectual faculties, imagination, memory banks, and much more. No matter how cool these thoughts are, we should not identify with them. When you identify with thoughts, you get anxiety. When you disidentify from thoughts, you get the capability of becoming a top tier communicator. The beauty about communication skill is the slew of benefits that come alongside mastering the skill set. You start to use your mind, basically turn your thoughts into the words and share those words to influence someone else's mind. The more you intentionally create content and understand where you stand for and certain issues, the more you start to become the owner of the tool rather than a person who is going for its joyrides. Your mind is capable of being disciplined. To discipline it requires repetition. In part 2, we are going to learn the art of how to think enriching powerful thoughts. If you had an iPhone 2 in the year of 2021, you would be laughed out of the building. Not only that, but I also doubt the iPhone 2 will even function. This is a comical yes, but how many of your thoughts are outdated? Maintenance is an illusion. Later in this book, you will be taught why learning, applying, and being a lifelong student of the game is a part of communication. By thinking the right thoughts, we became the owner of the tool known as the mind. Moving to the next one, that is words. Words have been a collaborative effort throughout human history. Before words, it was mainly about body language and imagery. Word allowed messages to be expressed at a rapid rate. Mastery of words comes down to linguistic intelligence. This line of intelligence is broken down into two big parts. Input is equals to reading, listening. Output is equals to speaking, writing. Input. We are inputting words all the time. This is the era of content creation. The information age has way more content than capable of being consumed. In terms of the input, what can go in through the eyes and the ears. Words can enter the eyes through vision. Words can enter the ears through audio. Output. Outputting words traditionally happens through writing and speaking. This is when you are creating content. Mental constraints are formed when you input way more than you output. That's when overthinking happens. Words are a dynamite tool in the communication skills realm. Plenty may blame the words firsthand for a lot of human atrocities, but that's incorrect in my opinion. We don't blame the car for the drunk driver's action. We blame the drunk driver. Fool, don't drink alcohol and get behind the wheel. With roots, there is always a person that is expressing it. It is a smart to not confuse the tool as a subject. That's when brainwashing happens. Do you know a person who places way more focus on the grammar, punctuation, and the spelling than the actual message? They are typically referred to as a grammar Nazi. If you own a if you own a Twitter account with more than 10,000 followers, then you may know what I mean. Their heart is in the right place. A part of them cannot stand a poor grammar. This causes them to suspend absorption of the message to fix the quirks in the words. This is a person who puts more focus on the words over the message. Huge error. Words are just a tool. Your message is always the king. The main goal. words serve is to turn your thoughts from water to ice. We don't want to get cut with it. Earlier, I talked about how being articulate is about being clear. We are clear when we use, simple words and are efficient in making our point. This introduces a very counterintuitive dynamic which needs to be mastered in order to build linguistic intelligence. Word irony. To build proficiency with words, we must love words, but not love words too much. When you love it, that's when you give each word the respect it deserves. You understand the role that it is serves in the package of communication. On the flip side, when you love it too much, a form of tyranny is a bit. You use fancy words, sweet the grammar, and the ability to articulate plummets before your very eyes. To get the most out of this tool, understand that it is a tool at the end of the day. Never make it is the centerpiece of communication. The main purpose of the car is to get you to your destination. Too foolish to call the car the destination. Next one is tonality. Tonality is the life behind the words. It is the energy and the attitude that you deliver the words with. Tonality is dependent upon the communicator and their relationship with message that is being told. In addition to the message that is being told, in environment plays a crucial role in communication as well. This may be very controversial of me to say, but here is it goes. Tonality is more powerful tool than words. I don't mean to compare the two, but are needed for proper communication to take place. The only reason that I suddenly compared the two was to help you understand how important tonality is in the grand scheme of things. A while back, there were two individuals who were having a podcast episode together, Grant Garden and Jordan Belfort. These were two people in the sales industry who were having a chat about their professional lives. The viewers were expecting a nonce discussions of sales techniques. However, the exact opposite happened. The two apparently had some conflict with one another beforehand. This turned the whole interview into a debate. Grant and Jordan were constantly throwing jabs at one another. Remember, these are the salespeople. You don't need to tell them how important tonality is. They already know firsthand. Throughout this debate, they were bluntly insulting each other with a very friendly tone. Grant was calling Jordan a drug addict with a warm voice. Jordan was implying Grant was an imitation salesman with a warm voice. Tonality was the only thing that was preventing the two of them from coming to blows. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. I doubt they would have actually fought, even though one of them suggested fighting around the end of the interview. Bottom line is that tonality plays a crucial role. The wrong tone can make constructive criticism sound like hate. The right tone can make an insult sounds like a joke. To become better at mastering these tools, it's really a game of learning with the ears. First, listen to all type of different tonality out there. The famous musician Kanye West said that his favorite musical instrument is the voice. The voice is an intrinsic tool in itself. The voice is broken down into ear, vocal cord, resonators, which is mouth, articulate with lips and tongue. The life cycle of the voice is pass air through the vocal cord to convert air into sound. Pass sounds the resonator where everything is gathered in one spot. Articulators then chop up the sounds into words. What a beautiful process. Appreciate the elegant details of the voice. That's when you hear others speak and prime your mind to understand the tonality that they are playing in the call that in two in one combo. This makes it much easier to have a beautiful tonality yourself. Allow this to be a subconscious byproduct of listening rather than a conscious effort. Sure. Sometimes you can set aside some time to practice playing around with different tonality in the voice. Like when you get one word and try to say it in 100 different tonalities, yes, that is possible. But for the most part, avoid trying to morph your tonality in different ways when having a conversation. This becomes distraction and prevents the other persons from hearing your message. The more you understand what you understand or what you stand for, the more beautiful tonality will match your message. We will cover how to discover what you stand for later in this book. Next one is body language. Mind control the body and the body control the mind. It is not always easy to control the mind, but it's easier to control the body. When thinking about body language, there are different ways to view it. So let me give you two framework. One is called the Holy Trinity, and the other framework is dynamic or static. These frameworks helps you turn the body from an ambiguous blob into layer that have a intricacy. Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity is a broken down into three main components: facial gesture, hand gesture, and tonality. In the last part, we broke down tonality that required a section of its own. Facial gestures are all about whether or not message and the face are congruent. I would be so spooky if someone is telling you their dog died with a smile on their face. Either this person is weirdo or the dog must have been an awfully bad puppy. I'm going to go with the first one. Hand gestures come down to being visible and open with the palm. Humans trust humans whose palms they can see. Why is this? I don't have an exact reason as to why, but I do have a certain theories. One of the theories is that visible palm shows our ancient ancestors that the other person was not a threat and was not concealing a weapon. Also, speaking of weapons, a pointed figures is a sharp gesture. You ever seen someone do that to you? Such an honest mistake. A pointed figure resemble a knife. Do it too much and you start to leave a poor taste in the other person's mouth. Gentle palms are visible open palms. View your palms as a tool that builds instant credibility during movement of a pressure. You may want to hide them, but don't rock them with grace. Dynamic and static. The static part of the body are the parts which normally remain fixed. The predominantly includes posture. Dynamic body part move around. This can be represented from the eyes, vocal tone, palms. When static is dynamic and dynamic is static, that's when awkward body language happens. Two examples: when your static posture turns dynamic, 1 minute you are standing confident, the next minute you are slouching, and then you are back to the standing straight. Something seems off. I'm sure you can sense it. Another example is when your dynamic eyes turn static. This is when you stop blinking and just stare at the other person. Creepy. All in all, there are different ways to learn body language. Whether you learn to classify movements based off the Holy Trinity or a dynamic framework is not too important. What is important is that you take some time to understand how much people communicate with the body, especially you. Here is my tip. Learn body language when you are experiencing dark emotion. When you are experiencing dark emotions like sadness, anxiety, and doubt, it would be etc. Turn off all distraction and tune into your body. Which body part are feeling tight? Your how your posture, which section of the body feel heated. The reason I recommend turning into your body during tensionful moment is because it speed up the learning curve. If you can learn to sit with your body when your world is falling apart, that's when you become unbreakable. Now, learning to spot how your body moves when everything falls into place, place is a light work. Next one is communication is like basketball. Having a bunch of tools and not knowing what to do with it leads to analysis paralysis. So let us connect the tools. Thus far, we talk about the tools being thought, word, tonality, and body language. Now, the question is, what are we using the tools for? What is the purpose of communication? The purpose of communication is to use these tools to make a point. Sometimes you will be required to use all the tools. Other times you may just need to use one of the tools. An example of using just one of the tool is when your friend does something silly and you give them an eye roll with a smile. The point that you made was you are so silly. The tool you use was body language. Let's say you are given a basketball without a hoop. What will you do? In the initial stage, you will probably dribble the ball and find a way to entertain yourself. However, after some time, I'm sure you will be feel bored. Now let's say that you are given a hoop but no ball. What now? Well, this scenario is more boring than the first one. So in the third scenario, you are given a ball and hoop. What do you do? Plenty. You can dribble the ball, dunk the ball, and jump shoot the ball. Three possibilities. Let's say you add three other people to your shooting session. Now you go from simply shooting the ball to having a full one game. The moves are passing, rebounding, stealing, play calling, dribbling, shooting, and dunking, and etc. The purpose of the game is to get the ball in the hoop. Similarly, with communication, the tool lead to wide range of moves such as joking, telling a story, asking question, paraphrasing points, making introductions, small talks, building rapport, etc. The purpose of communication is to consistently make point. The point can be small, such as rolling your eyes at a friend. The point can be big, like telling a story of your recent job promotion. When when we start understanding that communication skills are a sort of like a game,